Welcome everybody to Ninja Panda U. This is JT, and today we're going to go over Scratch and really just talk about what it is, how to get started, and some of the fundamentals. And first things first, let's just go ahead and get into it. Go ahead and go to scratch.mit.edu, and this is the page that you'll end up with. Now, if you're in school, you can use your school login to create an account or use any Gmail or anything like that and get going with the games you want to play and build in this community. So up here, you have a little sign in button. Go ahead and you can click on sign in, create an account, and go from there. Right here, you could also just click the join, and it will take you to where you create your username and all that fun stuff. So feel free to do that. And if you just want to dive in and have something up and running, you can click on start creating, and it does put you into this tutorial piece. Now, just a heads up on everybody, this tutorial piece isn't tied into your account or anything at the moment. So any code you put here, just remember you have to log in and do that in order for you to make sure the project's yours. But this getting started is a quick way for you to see like what's here. So I'm going to go through just this one window piece, and then I'm going to log in and just get to a new project. So right here, this tutorial window pops up. So it's great for you guys to learn all the basic pieces of Scratch and getting things going. And the nice thing is it sits in here, so you can play and code all at the same time. If you want to shrink it down, you can expand it. They have a lot of cool tutorials that are built in like this, so play around with it, especially if you're really new. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just minimize this, and I've logged into this one here, and have a new project, and I just went up here, and before it was called Untitled, and I just typed in my first game, and this is what you get. Anytime you create a brand new project, this is what it is. So when we look at this, there's a lot of things here. So I'm going to just cover each side and talk a little bit about it. So first things first, you always end up with the cat right here, and this everything here in these windows is clickable. So let's go ahead to the top right, and you see where I could click and drag my cat around. This is your game window. Okay, so anything here is what the player would see when they're playing your game in Scratch. Okay, so up here you have like a start, which is a go, and a stop. So green is go, red is stop. So this is how you get your game to start. Okay, and right underneath it you have these two windows. One's this called the sprite, and any object that you put into the game is a sprite. So you'll have a ton of sprites here as we start building more and more. And you can click on it. You can see what XY coordinates is located, the size of it, the direction, if you want it visible or not. So you get a couple options here, and the rest we can kind of play with via code. Right next to it is the stage, and that's where you have your backdrops. So think of the backdrops as the backgrounds that show up that cover the back of the game, right? So based on the type of game you're making, you can utilize backdrops to cover the entire back screen, okay? And we'll go over more of that as well. And in this middle section here is where all the code belongs, and it's always based off what you're clicking here. So if I click on this sprite here, it'll show you the sprite you're clicked on in the top right here. And so now it's just a matter of like, okay, well, I'm in here, I could add my code. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what else you can do on this left side. All right. So we have a lot of the blocks. They're actually all right here on the left side, and they're all categorized. So you have motion, looks, sound, events, control, sensing, operation variables, and you can make your own custom blocks. Right now, you can kind of scroll around and look. They're all color coded. And this is what I like to tell folks as they're getting started. Scratch is similar to like reading a sentence to a certain degree. So as you're trying to get something to happen, just ask yourself what type of event it is, and you can kind of see, is it a motion event? Is it an event about looks or sound events? Is it just an event itself? You could click on it, control, sensing, and so forth. Now, it's not a one-for-one match for what you're doing, but this helps you understand where you could look for the type of code block you need. And as you do more and more of this, it's going to make more sense. So we'll kind of leave that part at that. And what we're going to do is get our cat to say hello real quick. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to, I believe it's under motion. And is it motion? Let's see. I feel like, oh, it's actually in looks. And you'll see something called say hello for 2 seconds. Or say hello, think for 2 seconds, or think So we're just going to say hello, just to show you how it goes. All right, cool. I clicked on it and I dragged it over. Now let's say you're like, oh, I put the wrong one here. If you hold this, you can just throw it back here and it gets deleted off your code screen. So go ahead and just add that again. And there we go. Now, when I double clicked here, just in the block, you probably noticed one thing. So I'm gonna get rid of this. Take a look at the cat over here. And if we click here, you see a hello. So you can kind of see what's happening here, right? And which is really nice if you're kind of testing around and wanting to see what each of these blocks do before you're starting. So just know it's part of the system and it's there to help you. So I'm just going to drag this over and I'm just going to hit play, or the go button. I hit go, nothing's happening. And the reason is we need an event to start our game, right? So this is where we go to the events and we have our main starter when this flag is clicked. So anytime I click on this flag, the game starts. So eventually in your code, the way you build your game, you'll have at least one of these to kickstart your entire game. It's like turning the power on or double clicking on your game that you've installed on your computer and getting it to start up. This is what I kind of think about when it's that piece. So once you have this here, you could kind of see how they look like blocks. So you could go ahead and click, drag, and you'll hear a click, and there you go. You now have some code that is connected and will run. So now if I click here, you'll see it say hello, and it's going to do it for 2 seconds, and then it will stop. So as we start building more and more stuff, that's kind of the way things get clicked in and so forth. So we're going to add another piece to this. And before we add more code, make sure your sprite is still selected. You're going to see 3 tabs here for code, costumes, and sound. So go ahead and click on costumes. And in costumes, you now see, hey, wait, I have 2 cats. You could click either one of these and think of this as a place where you could have the different looks of that sprite or menu item or whatever it is. In this instance, think of like a flipbook of animations or keyframes that you draw each piece so it looks like something's happening, right? So it's like, oh, cool, I have costume 1 and costume 2. If I leave it on costume 2, go back to my code, this character now is stuck on costume 2. And now I could hit this and it's in a different position, right? So just know whatever you have highlighted is the one that it starts with. And you could go ahead and duplicate things. You could hit draw, and we'll do more of this afterwards, but this is kind of where you do that. The next tab is sounds. And a lot of the built-in sprites that Scratch offers will have some costumes and some sounds for you to play with. So you do not need to make them yourself or anything like that. You could record your own if you wanted to. So just know that's an option. And down here, if you hover over this, you'll see a little mic. You could click on that and you could make your own actual recording. And now you could use that in your game. So a lot of cool things. But for now, I'm just going to hit play here. And you got this meow happening. So let's do that one more time, right? So we got that. And so now we know we have a meow, we have some costumes. Let's go ahead and get it to say meow. So I'm going to go ahead and look in sound, and we're going to play the meow sound until done. So I'm going to change the order of this. So I'm going to pull these apart, move this up, and do this. So I want it to play the meow, then say hello. Now, why did I do that? It's just for fun, but feel free to play around with this. You can actually have it both run at the same time if you want by throwing another event and just doing this. So now it does it simultaneously. So you can have more than one flag clicked event. Just remember that's what's going to happen when you push that flag. So as your games get more complicated, you're going to have to map out that logic and understand what you want to have happen next. But I'm just going to move this back for now. Let's keep it simple and go from there. So now that we have meow and we have it saying something, let's go ahead and look at the costumes. So how do I change the costume? So in here, you're going to go to looks, and you have something right here that's called switch costume, next costume. You can have the switch backdrop, next backdrop, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and first pick switch costume, and I'm going to hit that, and it's going to say hello, and then it's going to switch, right? So it went hello, meow, and it waited until it was done to then do the next block, which said hello for 2 seconds, and then it went there. Now, if I wanted my meow not to wait, my meow sound not to wait, I could just pick this one instead, and it will do it at the same time, and then it will move. Now notice how like it's already stuck on here, so I need to set it back to costume 1 in order for this to run the way I want it to run. So a couple ways you can do this is you can always have, let's scroll back up, and you have your costume. So you could click here and change it to 1, and if you just click the code, it'll actually run it. It's not part of anything because it's not attached, but it's a quick way for you to do that. So now I could do this again. It's going to do that, and it's going to change the costume, and you're like, oh, okay, let's test it again. I just click on this, and it will change. So there's a lot of little things like that you can kind of play with, and we'll go over this more and more as we start building out our title screens and simple games and so forth. So once you have some of this, the other piece that we'll just cover in here, and we'll go in more detail in our next video, is our events in loops. So we're going to go to control, and I'm going to just have it kind of cycle back and forth between the two costumes, and let's just see what happens. So I'm going to just have it do it 10 times first. So 10 times, and I am going to go back to my looks, and I could have it where it says, hey, I'm going to change my costume. So here, actually, let's do this. Let's put that there. We're going to change to costume 2. And then I want to change it to costume 1. And if I hit run right here, you're going to get something going. And then you're like, oh, what happened? Nothing really happened. That's because this ran so fast that it just ended up with costume 1, which is what it started with. So we need to go and find our time piece where in control we have a wait. So if I wait 1 second, then I can do this, and then at least you'll see it, right? Oh, it changed, went back, went back, went back, and so forth. But it's doing this little jerky motion. So you kind of have to add time so then you could at least see it. So it's like, okay, switch to costume 2, wait a second, switch to costume 1, and then it repeats and it changes to costume 2 right away. So then it's like you almost have to have 2 of these little timers, right? So you got your hello, and then it's like, okay, cool, and it's going, right? And it's moving. But it's way too slow. So let's go ahead and change this up. Let's do it at, wait, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Click on the number. Let's do 0.5 for half a second. And let's do this one at 0.5 as well. And you could hit this. And now at least it'll look like it's moving a little better. And feel free to tweak it with the timing of that makes sense for you. And we'll just try one more time. Let's see. And go from there. And you get it to go. Okay, all right, that works. So that's how you can use a repeat. But let's say you just want it to just always happen. For example, you could use this forever block instead. So in forever, I can then switch up my costumes. But what we're going to do is make this even more efficient. So we need a time. So I'm going to change this to 0.4. All right. And then in our looks, we want to use next costume. The cool thing about next costume is it just kind of loops back to the next costume. There's two, it switches back and forth. So if we did forever next costume waited, we should get the same effect as this block of code that we had here. So there's different ways you can utilize your loops, and there's different ways for us to do it forever or do it a finite amount of times. Really up to you. But that's kind of the basics of some of the loops that you can do. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hit stop here. And other thing that we'll mention and we'll go over it more in detail is you can add a ton of sprites. And so if you go to the sprite section, click the little cat sprite icon. You could click on choose a sprite, and this is all built in. So you got a lot of cool things you could pick from just to play around with. So you're like, oh, cool, I would like a walking one. Sure. All right, now I have two sprites. Notice how when you click on this, there's no code. You click back here, there's code. Code only sits in the sprite itself. So if you want it to kind of talk to each other, you have to do what we call a broadcast. So you're sending a message from one sprite and you're having other sprites listen to it and then do something when you hear it. So we're going to go back into the events, and there's a piece right here where you will see we're going to broadcast a message, because the cat is going to send the message to the person. And if you click on message 1, we're going to make a new message. And we're just going to say hello. All right. And now what we're going to do is I'm just going to put this in before our forever block. Actually, let's do it this way. Oops. Okay, let's move that. Okay, all right, let's do this. There we go. Then put this back in there. All right. So we have it start meowing. It says, sends the broadcast and then says hello. And we want Avery here to pick it up and say hello back. Okay. So right now, if I hit play, nothing happens because no one's, the broadcast got sent, but there's no one listening for it. So it did its job. Right? So now let's click on the other sprite. Whatever sprite you have is okay. And what we're going to do is here, there is when I receive, and it says say hello, and it's that broadcast. So when I receive this broadcast, I'm going to then do something. So I'm going to say hello as well. Okay? So now what's going to happen is you'll see a hello, and everyone's saying hello to each other. Right? And it happens so fast that we might need to add a little bit of a time on it. So let's go back to sprite 1 in here. And this is where I will push this back, and I'm going to get rid of this sound one. And I'm going to do this one, play meow sound. Actually, no, we could leave this one. Let's do this. Let's break that one apart. this one. There you go. Have it say hello for 2 seconds. Then it sends it, and then there you go. All right. That way, at least you see hello, and then you have a hello back, right? And now you have sprites communicating with each other. So we went over a lot, especially for those who are new to Scratch. Just know as we kind of move things over, we're just testing it out, seeing what's happening. But the things that I went over, there's only like there's a lot more to it, but we went over how we moved over some code, a flag, when flag is clicked, starts everything, did a little loop, played with some sound, rotated a costume, and even worked on a broadcast. So there's much more we can do moving forward, but that's kind of the beginning parts of Scratch. And so I'll leave it here, and hopefully you'll watch the other videos on how you can start making some games with this. Thank you.